Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Cultural Development Grant Application Workshop for the Arts Council of Hillsborough County. We're so glad you're attending today. Whether you are a first-time applicant or whether you've applied many years, it's still this is important. And today we have some information that I think is of particular importance. And I want to share that with you before I turn the presentation over to Kathy. We have gotten a number of calls over the holidays. Some of you are very concerned about the deadline of the grant, in that maybe you don't have all of your activities for the 2026 year, 2020 scheduled at this point. And we understand that. But I want you to understand that this is for general operating support and not specific program details. So please just tell us what you do in the application in the community and how you provide cultural benefits to our citizens. Give us and the grant reviewers an overall picture of who you are and what you do. And I will make the grant reviewers very aware when the time comes in March to review the grants that state funding is very much up in the air, and it's very difficult to make these decisions when you don't have answers to that. They will understand that. So please, we want to have information on partnerships and collaborations, but these don't have to be set in stone at the time of the application. Things can change anytime, and we certainly understand that. So please just tell us in the application who you hope to partner with or whom you are working to create an ongoing collaboration. The same is true for programming. Tell us what you did in 2024 and how you plan to continue and even expand on this. You do not have to reinvent the wheel each year, each new grant application. If you received a good score last year, there's a reason for that. So please be proud of it and simply show us what you will do to continue to do the good work that you do. Again, this can be a little bit more general at this point. Also, keep in mind, for those of you that are returning grantees, you know about our change form. So when there is a change in the budget or whatever, and this is after the grant agreement is signed, we have a mechanism for you to show us that change. So you don't need to worry about that for the application when the grant reviewers will be reviewing. But those specific changes, there is a mechanism to take care of that after you've entered into the agreement with the county and still be compliant on your contract. So for those of you who have had concerns that you didn't have everything scheduled at this point, please just be general in the application and tell us what you want to do, and we can get to the specifics later. So because there is concern about that, I wanted to start it off by reassuring everyone, and that the grant reviewers will be aware of this too. We will make them aware of that. And with all that said, we will turn it over to Kathy, who is your #1 contact for the Cultural Development Grant. So Kathy, take it away.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Martine. I'd also like to welcome Eileen Blake and Lisa Hill, who are parts of the Arts Council. As Martine said, if you have any questions about the Cultural Development Grant application process or afterwards, please don't ever hesitate to contact me either by phone or by email. So let's get started a little bit on the application workshop. So as Martine indicated, the Cultural Development Grant is for general operating support. It is awarded on a competitive basis, and you must be a Florida organization, and you must be a 501c3, and you must provide cultural programming in Hillsborough County. The application opened yesterday at 9 a.m. and it will close on Friday, January 24, 2025 at 5 p.m. No applications will be accepted after 5:01. And believe me, we've had some people who have tried to submit them and they have not been accepted. So I strongly suggest that you try to get it in before Friday. If there are any problems once you submit something, if you do it before the deadline, you can contact me. I can reopen it and you can make a correction if you need to. But if you find the errors after January 24th, it can't be reopened. Once the applications come in, we will do a review to make sure that everything is as it needs to be, to make sure that the applicants are eligible. Then once all the eligible applications have been reviewed, they are then sent to the Arts Council Advisory Board. They will spend the about 3 weeks reviewing each and every application, and then they score them, and then they meet on Tuesday, March 4th at 11 a.m. to review the scores. All applicants are invited to attend either virtually or in person. And then once the advisory board votes on the slate of applicants, nothing is final until the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners vote to actually fund the program. And that generally occurs in either October or November of 2025. So a lot goes on, but nothing is done or final until the county commission actually votes on it. Additional dates to keep in mind are that your grant period for fiscal year 2026 is from October 1, 2025 to August 15, 2026. Now, I say funds expended outside of this time period are not eligible, but that just means you have to keep your paperwork within the October 1, 2025 to August 15, 2026. And that includes your balance sheets, your profit and loss, all the things that you're going to submit for your reimbursement requests. Now, for anyone who has never applied for a cultural development grant before, this is a fairly important screen because it indicates who is eligible. You must be a cultural organization with a primary mission of cultural programming. You have to have been a 501c3 for at least 1 year. You have to be registered both with the state of Florida and have your principal office in Hillsborough County. And principally, most of your programming must occur in Hillsborough County. We do have organizations who go outside, but the majority of what you do has to be done in Hillsborough. You have to be in good standing with the IRS, and you're going to have to provide a copy of your IRS determination letter. That's the one that indicates that you are a nonprofit. It provides your EIN. It's the thing that you get that basically says, here you go, you are a nonprofit. Your events and services and programs have to be open to the public and benefit citizens of Hillsborough County. You also have to be able to show within the grant application budget section that you basically are capable of putting on your programming and then asking for this money back. As it is reimbursement based, that means you have to be able to spend the money in the quarter before you ask for it. So your budget is going to have to show that you're capable of that type of operation. And then you'll also have to provide us with a copy of your 990 or your 990EZ, which was prepared within at least 18 months of the application. Ineligible organizations would include those who maybe have gotten the grant before and did not meet the contractual agreements. If you forfeited or you didn't complete something, you may not be eligible. Applications from municipalities, governmental entities, educational institutions are not eligible for the cultural development grant. In addition, organizations that receive funding from Hillsborough County or other Arts Council programs are eligible for cultural development. So, for example, if you receive a special event project grant, you're not eligible. If you've received a community arts impact grant, you can't also get a cultural development grant. And questions with respect to the funding would best be directed to Martine to determine whether or not you are in fact eligible if you have a question. Now, the funding is based upon your score, which you must receive at least an 80 or above to get it. However, I do want to point out the funding is not guaranteed because it really depends upon how many people apply and how much money we have. We have a limited pot of money. So this goes through a funding formula and we determine how much each applicant is eligible to receive. To determine how much you can ask for, you have to look at your revenue listing on your most recent 990 or 990 EZ, and you'll see we have listed levels 1, 2, and 3. Those are what you're looking for as what your income is, and then the levels also have a corresponding funding request. Now, if you ask, let's just say, for example, you ask for $15,000, you're not getting $15,000. You're going to get some amount below that because, again, it depends upon how many people have applied, what your score is, and where you fall in with the funding formula that we use. So I would caution anyone above and you've asked for 15,000, don't plan on the 15,000 because it very much depends on a lot of different factors. Now, the funding can be used, as we've said, it's for operational support. So things like salary, production costs, revenue rental, venue rental, and marketing, things like that, things that it takes to put on your organization are what you can use the funding for. You cannot use the funding for things like licensing fees or fundraising or food, entertainment, re-granting, things like that. That cannot, the funding cannot be used for those items. Now, at this point, let's get into the application process. But again, if anyone has a question with respect to eligibility, please reach out to us and then we will try to answer your question before you go through the process of preparing the grant application and then find out you're not eligible. Hillsborough County Arts Council uses a portal system called Neighborly Software. And you see at the top, we've given the actual link to it. If you are a prior grantee, you do not have to re-register. You simply log in using your username and your password, look for the application for 2025-2026. You click on that, and then you'll come up to and you'll see the 3 different programs, and you just click on cultural development. And then you give yourself a name, and then that way you'll know what you're looking for when you go back in, because you can go in and out of the portal system. Just make sure you save things. So once you start your application, then you can get in and you'll see that the application itself is broken down into 8 parts. Now, each of these parts can be either started or completed. You can save, you can log out, and then you can go back in. You don't have to do them in any particular order. You can do them as you need to. As a prior grantee, what I would do is I would take a lot of this information, I'd work offline, and then I would kind of cut and paste back in and make sure that I wasn't getting confused when you're trying to do it like within the portal system, because sometimes you can't see everything that you're typing. But as you go through, when you do complete a section, you'll get a green check mark. Excuse me. You'll get a green check mark, and that'll show that you've finished that. Now, as long as you have not submitted the application, you can go back in and you can fix something if you find that you've made an error anywhere. Now, these are just some tips for telling us your story. Basically, tell us who you are. What do you do? Where do you do it primarily? Are you serving the Plant City area? Do you serve East Tampa, East Hillsborough? Do you serve the whole county? Who do you serve? Who is your target audience? Tell us why you do it. Give us some information about your background, how you got started, and when you do what you do. If it's seasonal, tell us that it's seasonal. Some organizations don't operate during the summer. So we just need to know, like, when are you going, when's the majority of your programming going to take place? Additional tips are, be clear. Tell us what you're requesting the money for. Be direct and concise. Try to answer the questions that are asked. And as I stated earlier, it's best, at least I found this, to work offline because you can work on a word and you can see the number of characters, you can see the words, because in Neighborly, they don't have that. So you're going to have to manage that on your own offline. They also don't have spell check, and it doesn't change your grammar. Like, it won't go in and say you've used the wrong word or you haven't added a comma. And I can tell you from reviewing applications, things like spelling errors, grammar, incomplete sentences are maddening to reviewers. So review your work, check it, make sure that it's accurate, but also be direct and concise. You don't have to go on and on about something. If the answer is going to require a couple of sentences, then that's how much it requires. You don't have to use every single character or every single word that is allotted to you. Now, for the budget section, you're going to be asked several questions. You're going to be asked budget information about your overall organization and about the specific programming. So we suggest that you get your information together. And when it asks about current year and last year, it is asking about your fiscal year. So whatever your fiscal year is, that's the information that you're going to provide. Now, obviously, if your fiscal year begins in January, you're not going to have a whole lot of information to give us for the current fiscal year. But put that in the notes and say, our fiscal year begins here. That way we can see more information from the last completed fiscal year. You're also going to need to make sure that you have copies of your tax returns, because that's going to give you the information that you need to show how much you've spent, how much the amount of revenue that you brought in, and what areas the money is spent on, whether it's spent on programming, administration, or other types of I can't think of the word for some reason, expenditures. As I said, the budget is cut into two sections. So in your operating budget, this is where you're going to show us that you are an organization that can essentially sustain your programming and request money in as a reimbursement. So when I say that, what I mean is, for example, the grant starts October 1, 2025, and the first quarter ends December 31, 2025. You don't submit your request for that money until sometime in January. So obviously you have to have been able to spend whatever you needed to spend. So you need to be able to show that you have income capable of being able to do that. Under the proposal budget, that's where you basically just tell us, where you think you're going to be spending the money. Are you going to be using it to help pay an artistic director, or are you going to be using it for venue rentals, things like that? You're going to give us that information under the proposal budget. But again, remember, we know that things change. There's always the opportunity, if you need to submit a grant request change or grant change request. And, we are going to work with you on all of these things. Now, this is you have certain required documents that you have to give to us. As I've said, that includes your most recent 990 or 990 EZ. We want to see a list of your board of directors. And when we say affiliations, what we want to know is we want to see that you have a broad and diverse group who are on your board. We want to see different professional backgrounds. We want to see different people from around the community that are coming and helping run the organization. The IRS determination letter, again, is the one that you received that indicates that you're a nonprofit. You're also going to have to provide a dated and signed IRS W-9 form, and then you have to give us some work samples so that we can see what your organization does. Then there is a section that allows you to provide optional documents. And you can provide us with up to 5 supporting documents, and they can include letters of support, letters of collaboration. You can give us brochures, videos, letters from artists. You should try to bundle those things into one single document. So you would put all of your letters of support with one, your brochures in another one, and then upload those as 5 supporting documents. One thing to remember, if you are going to provide letters of support or collaboration, please make sure that it is a new letter. Please do not attach a letter from fiscal year 2024. It's going to look like you either don't have that collaboration or you just didn't bother to get a new one. It really needs to be dated new on the letterhead from the person that you are asking for, and ask them to please make reference to the actual partnership or collaboration, or if they've been asked and they're considering it. Please don't include things that aren't like of any substance, because it just takes up space that the reviewers have to review. Now, here are some additional tips which I've kind of already gone over a little bit. You can save your work with the save button. Changes are not automatically saved by Neighborly, so don't forget to always hit save. The system accepts any type of files for uploads, but don't give things that require a password. Make sure that it is something that when we go to click on it, we can easily open it and see it. If it has a password and we can't open it, they're not going to review it, they're not going to see it, and it's going to be it's going to go as a negative score. Neighborly doesn't have spell check. So we strongly suggest that you proofread, maybe have someone else proofread it for you. We can't provide you with specific advice on your application, but we can help you if you have an error and you need something reopened, or if you have a question about something, we can answer the question. We just can't tell you, this is the best way to write this particular section, or this is what we would say you should put in your application. And then also just be mindful of character count and word count. That's why it's best to do work offline, because it's not necessarily there. Neighborly will just kind of cut you off if you get beyond the amount that each section allows. Now, if you do receive funding, please remember again that nothing is final until the Hillsborough County Board of County Commissioners approves the funding for fiscal year 2026. And again, that doesn't happen until either October or November of 2025. Then if that happens, we will then prepare a grant agreement, which you will get, and everything has to be executed by both you and someone from the county. And then we can kind of get it going once the grant agreement is fully signed. You also have to provide, in addition to the W-9, you have to show that you have current liability insurance. So all you have to provide us with is just the certificate or the deck sheet that shows how much you have and that it is current. And then once everything is kind of finalized, we will hold a grant administration workshop, which basically helps with respect to the actual information that is needed for the reimbursement requests. So here's some final tips. Be proactive so that you avoid problems. For example, if you have a partnership or you have a collaboration, ask for the letters early. Don't wait until the last minute to ask for them, because everyone may not be on your same timeline, and you need to make sure that you get everything in by the deadline, which again is Friday, January 24th, 2025 at 5 p.m. We cannot offer extensions, and no applications will be accepted after that time. You can either contact the Arts Council through the general email or the general phone number, or you can email me and call me directly. I will be more than happy. No question is too small, too silly. If you have a question, please just ask it. It's better to ask than to not get your answers. So I hope I didn't go too fast. I have a tendency to talk really fast. If anybody has any questions, either put it in a chat, raise your hand, or if you can unmute your mic, you can ask for questions.
So I just want to reinforce something that Kathy said about, not waiting till the last minute. That's good process anytime you're doing a grant. But if you submit a few days early, we will look at it. And if we see a problem, we can let you know. And so we can help you in that regard. And as Kathy said, open it back up so you can fix the issue that might be disqualifying. We can't do that if it's the last minute, but if you submit it a few days early, that can be very helpful. And because we received so many comments over the holidays about, oh, I don't have my partnerships in line, I'm not going to have all the details in time for this application, that makes getting those letters from previous partners and collaborators even more important, because the grant reviewers will see that you had these in the past, and that will be a substitute for the fact that maybe you don't have that all locked up right now. But these people can't do it unless you ask them very, very early in the process. And it's very important that these be current letters dated now, even if the collaboration was in the past. And those letters can be extremely helpful with the grant reviewer. So don't underestimate that as a tool in your toolkit to really tell your story. And that's all we're asking for. We want you to tell your story as you know it now. And yes, some details may be missing, but that's okay. We can fill in the gaps later. Just tell us your best story, and that's what our grant reviewers want to see.
So I see Matt Williams has a question. Matt, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's actually two. I guess one's kind of more of a comment. I know in the application it talks about current fiscal year, amounts, budgets, and last fiscal year, I guess it's for those of us that have a calendar fiscal year, it's going to be very, very small since we're submitting it in January, right? As long as I guess whoever's reviewing understands that, and that kind of goes back to the comments you guys just made. But the second one is we're a music organization, and I see that you guys changed it this year where you're requiring work samples as opposed to the kind of the optional. Because in the optional, we can submit links to work samples. Uploading files for work samples is going to make it very difficult because all of ours are very large files typically.
So what we suggest that you do with respect to that is just, if you can, when you just, I'm not sure if there's a way to give your a link that has like just a small amount of it. Whatever the link is, I don't know that the link would necessarily take up a lot of space, but it was there last year. We didn't change that. The work samples were there from last year.
Well, I just compared it to in Neighborly, and it's not under the required support.
Okay.
It was only under the optional support.
Okay.
And that's where you could put in a link. So I guess the question would be, are we able to maybe create a file with links in it and upload that for work samples then?
Yes. You can give us like a Word document that has the link in it. Okay. And then we can click on it that way. It doesn't have to be, the actual thing. It can be just like a Word document that lists, say, 2 or 3 performances.
Perfect.
And then the question with respect to the budget, just remember, yes, if you're following the calendar year for the current fiscal year in that budget, it is going to be very small. But there should be a section within there somewhere that allows you to say our fiscal year is this. Right. So that way they're not going to say, well, why are you only spending X? But your last fiscal year will certainly be complete, and it will be able to show what you've done. Correct.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Matt, the grant reviewers really only want like a 3-minute segment. They don't want a lengthy, the whole thing anyway. So if you do what Kathy says, it should be enough. They just want to see a little bit about, a performance in action and those things, but they don't need a lengthy, they don't need the whole performance, nor do they want the whole performance. They just want a snippet that kind of shows you at your best.
Understood. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? So this particular webinar, I will have both a PDF of the slides available, and we also will have a link that you'll be able to get of the actual recording from this. I know there were some people who had conflicts with today, so it will be made available to everyone who requests it, or if you're a prior grantee, I will make sure that you get a copy of it. And again, if you think of a question afterwards, please don't hesitate to contact me and ask.
Well, thank you all for attending. Yes, we are here to assist. Any questions that you have as you get into the process, please let us know. But again, before you start writing the grant, ask for your letters from your partners and recommendations and things so that they have plenty of time and they can be preparing those while you're writing the grant. So that's a good thing to put at the top of your list.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time out to join us on this particular webinar. Again, if you have any questions, please let us know.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year and have a great day.